Know about you, but I actually love living in urban environments in cities. The music, the culture, did I set the camera right? Okay. The cities have so much to offer in terms of convenience of restaurants, music, culture, and I love living without a car and so on. So let's read a little bit about how cities can actually contribute. They need not be seen always as problems. And here are a couple of reports from IRENA. One is on the rise of renewables in cities. The other one is on policies for renewables in cities or some such thing. So I'm going to just make two brief podcasts on these and then conclude the urban resilience part. Rise of renewables in cities. This is a bit older, but the points are still valid. I'm going to be very brief. This is usually sponsored or supported by the German government. Energy solutions for the urban future. Executive summary. We'll read a bunch of things just to I won't go into the whole report. Cities are increasingly relevant to climate change mitigation and adaptation, not only because of their high contribution to global carbon emissions, for which they get a lot of attention, but importantly because of their large potential to mitigate emissions of all kinds, as well as the rising need to build climate resilient urban infrastructure for the future. Cities will need to accommodate 2/3 of the world's population in a livable, low carbon environment by 2050. Integrating renewable energy technologies into local energy systems has become part of the transformative action that is needed to realize such potential, backed by strong political will and technological advancement. Cities will also benefit greatly from the positive impacts that local development of renewables has on the gross domestic product and employment. This report explores three key pillars of knowledge on renewable energy resource potentials and renewable energy targets, technology options, and urban energy system planning that will enable cities to scale up their use of locally available renewables as they move to decarbonize their energy systems. There's also some literature on urban forests, vertical farming in urban areas, and so on that I'm not going to include here. Setting renewable energy targets is an important component of cities' efforts to boost deployment of renewables. However, setting the right level of targets relies on good understanding of the availability of renewable energy resources, among other key factors. An analysis of targets set at the city level in relation to both locally available renewable energy resources and renewable power plants sited near cities reveals that a growing number of cities have a set of renewable energy targets. A growing number of cities have set renewable energy targets, but they are concentrated in Europe and North America, areas that have higher economic wealth and temperate to cold climates. And we read a little bit about the income levels and city sizes and their specific issues in adaptation and so on. We'll look at a global map of these number of cities with renewable plants and so on. Cities with renewable energy targets fall most commonly in the population range of 100,000 to 500,000 inhabitants, remembering again that the definition of cities is not universally accepted. The majority of large and mega cities that have set renewable energy targets have pursued only a modest share of renewables in their energy mix. So setting targets is one thing. It's like submitting NDCs, but then you need monitoring, verification, and reporting as well. And it's the same for any action because priorities keep shifting. We talked about budgeting for these things and having room in the budget to sustain the activities, because if a heat wave hits, a flood hits, or pandemic comes and your priorities begin to shift, then obviously these tend to take a back seat. Hydropower, bioenergy, and waste to energy already play a clear role in helping cities achieve their renewable energy targets and in decarbonizing the energy mix. The use of solar and geothermal energy in cities is rising, although huge potential remains untapped. While the ability to harness wind power within cities is progressing but remains marginal. So these give you some sense of where things can be improved. This report also provides an overview of the most commonly used renewable energy technologies in cities, which include solar photovoltaics, of course, solar thermal. So solar thermal systems, which rely on different types of solar collectors, are usually used for water and space heating, and in some cases for industrial process heat. Okay, solar thermal cooling. With the growth of global cooling demand tripling from 600 terawatt hours in 1990 to 2000 terawatt hours in 2016 and projected to at least triple again by 2050, solar thermal energy has gradually extended into cooling sector. There is some other podcast I'll record on how air conditioning and cooling are getting a lot of attention, especially because HFCs are greenhouse gases, very potent greenhouse gases, and HFCs have to be replaced, but we also have to find ways to cool without consuming a lot of energy. But what is missed in these arguments is that actually solar heating, or I'm sorry, heating in general, especially in colder climates, is taking up much more energy than cooling. So cooling and focus on cooling may again come down to targeting the global south, which is warming, and as people get their per capita GDP improve, they will begin to buy more and more air conditioners, not as a luxury but as a necessity to adapt to the warming. So are we aiming at the global south when we talk about the need to worry about cooling while not talking as much about the heating? So we have to worry about that. There are ideas on combined power and heating, district heating, and many ideas to reduce heating costs, but still the attention given to AC somehow seems quite a bit higher than that given for heating. Anyway, bioenergy and waste to energy. These biomass-based energy sources can provide a relatively reliable and consistent supply of energy in comparison with solar PV. For cities, waste to energy offers a promising way to create a circular economy. So again, implementation is key. Urban wind power. Wind power has been used only marginally in cities and faces huge challenges to scaling up. I'm not going into the details here, but you can look at examples of urban wind turbines generating electricity. The performance need to be improved substantially, and large-scale implementation is scarce so far. Geothermal energy for direct use. Obviously this is not available everywhere, but with the need to decarbonize the heating sector and recognizing the potential and advantages of direct use of geothermal energy, applications in cities have been growing. So good news overall. Let's conclude this in this part. To conclude, cities can rarely rely solely on local renewable energy sources to decarbonize their energy systems. However, before cities default to importing renewables from outside their boundaries, they should explore the opportunities to maximize the use of locally available renewable energy sources. How to bring about the finance is another issue. How to regulate it, implement them, and enforce them are also issues for overall mitigation and adaptation. They should encourage distributed energy generation and an integrated approach to developing future urban infrastructure. So basically, instead of having central grid systems, we can use micro, macro, and nano grids to combine various energy technologies and storages to manage renewables in urban as a part of the urban infrastructure. This means coupling the power, buildings, transport, heating, and industry sectors to achieve higher system efficiency and enhance climate resilience. To make a few more points, here is a global mapping of renewable energy target cities and climate zones. So you can see the global south in the red, except Australia, which is actually in the global north in terms of its wealth and GDP and so on. So there are many cities in rich countries, continent of North America and Europe, for example, not so much in Australia, and there are sprinkling of cities in the global south as well, which have renewable energy targets. India, for example, would do it just for its energy independence and energy security, and that would be the same for countries where cities have the potential for solar and wind and they have plans, but as we just read, plans don't mean necessarily implementation, so a lot of implementation has yet to go. So let's leave this here and come back and do another podcast on renewable energy policies for cities. That this report also includes data on energy potential, solar and wind, and other details which I'm not including. I just wanted to give a very brief introduction here, and of course the report is available online, so you can go and read that. So let's come back and do another podcast on policies for renewable energy in the cities. Okay.